a chief, I think, we always communicate to our troops. We always want to make sure that what we're doing is getting down to frontline staff. A lot of times you'll be in meetings and you'll say something and people will nod their head like they're in agreement, and then they'll leave and they'll be like, what just happened here? And I think the only way to know that you are in alignment is to do like we did
and use Orgametrics. And I think that's really important
because it allowed us to see specifically what we were doing, if it was getting down to the frontline staff, to make sure we're all in alignment. So when I would go out and talk to the community, or I would talk to the troops or to elected officials, I could be assured that what I was saying, they weren't going to hear something different from one of my cops. And I think by us participating in this, it allowed us to be sure that that would be the case. So measuring alignment is, again, I'm going to go back to, you need to know where you're at, right? Because if you think you're one place and you're not, and you just keep moving forward, and then later on down the line, you're having problems because you've moved forward a little bit too fast, or you moved forward thinking you were at a place different than where you actually were, I think that could be problematic. So I think, measuring is key to know where you're at. And then also too, what we found is that when you do the measurement, you can find out where in the organization the alignment is not getting to, right? So if there's an area in the organization that's not aligned, the survey that we did allowed us to see where that alignment was getting caught up, so we could address that piece, so we could unclog the valve, so to speak, to make sure everybody was getting in alignment along with the same message that we were trying to deliver to all the troops. Let's look at performance, right? If you think you know where performance issues are, that's one thing, but knowing is another, right? Because if you're wrong, you're going to spend time dealing with an issue that might not necessarily be the caveat for what you need to be dealing with. Measurement allows you to figure out where specifically the performance issue is, so you can deal with that. And again, we all know time is not invaluable. Time is something that is finite. I prefer to use time wisely, and the measurement piece allows us to use that time wisely to address any area in the organization where we may be deficient, as opposed to going back and forth looking for something. So I'll give a perfect example here. Our traffic stops were down, right? Which is obviously a performance issue, since traffic is the number one issue that our police department and most police departments around the country get from our citizens. So we looked at a couple of things, and the assumption was that the officers, we had a whole bunch of new officers and they weren't ready to make traffic stops, so we need to start addressing these officers. Well, it turned out when we started pulling traffic data from telemetric systems throughout the city, people were actually obeying the traffic laws more, right? So if we would have been harping on our cops about doing traffic stops, what damage could that have done when that, in fact, was not the reason for stops being down, when it was, in fact, people were actually following the law because they start to see more cop cars. So that's really, I think, because, if we'd have harped on people, it would have been, could have potentially did some things for morale and whatnot. But to me, that's just one example of really having data, know where the performance issues are, so you can correctly address them.